certain fact checkers in this country have actually tried to inflame passions. Mohammad Zubair, he was arrested by Delhi police, he was charged by UP police as well.
Now, whether it is a person you mentioned, or it is some state actor sitting in Islamabad, or it is some other country that is jealous of India's rise in the world, nobody should have the power and the ability to use misinformation to create toxicity, to create user harm, to create strife. That is something that we will not permit.
If I may use a cheeky expression, the fact checkers in India today have become more powerful than the journalists on the ground like us, which is why the government of India has now announced a screening committee that will decide what is fake news and what is not. But what is this going to be a nodal agency that is going to decide this fake news is the answer which we may get today from the Minister of State for Electronics and Information Technology, Rajeev Chandrasekhar, who joins us on the show of the CROSSFIRE. Welcome to the show, Mr. Chandrasekhar. First of all, many congratulations for taking brave steps in the last 1.5 to 2 years regarding your ministry. I'm also given to understand these steps, I believe, are addition or sort of improvisation of the existing IT rules which were introduced in 2021. First question to you. There's a lot of criticism which is going on in the public that these rules are going to be censoring or seen as a censor on the media's freedom. How do you look at this sort of a criticism?
Thank you, Rohan, for having this chat. And let me start off clearly by saying that our Prime Minister's goals towards the internet is to first of all make every Indian have access to the internet and make India the largest connected democracy in the world. And therefore, as part of that, we have about 82 crore Indians online. And by 2025, we will have 120 crore Indians online. Now, if you just logically look at this, given that 120 crore Indians are going to be using the internet for various things, connecting to the government, education, their business, innovation, it is very, very important that the internet in India remains safe and a trusted space for all those who are using it. And therefore, over the years, the Prime Minister has laid out a framework and MeitY has tried to implement it,
right,
where the internet will always be a safe and trusted place.
Right.
The corollary of that is, the reciprocal concept of that is, that because the internet has to be safe and trusted, lot of content that have started creeping into the internet, which were illegal, unlawful, creating user harm, misinformation, patently false information, need to be avoided. So in October 2022, that is about 6-8 months ago,
right,
we notified the new amendment to the IT rules, which laid out very clearly the 9 areas where social media intermediaries must avoid hosting content.
Right.
And it was given as an obligation on them, in return for which they have legal immunity from anybody who tries to file a case against them.
Right.
That was the arrangement, that is the framework. To help them deal with one of those 5, which is to do with misinformation,
right,
which is a rule called 31B5,
right,
which lays out that they must avoid having misinformation and patently false information on their platforms.
right.
We have suggested in these rules that there can be an independent fact-checking unit.
Right.
Independent in the sense, it is independent of the industry and independent of the operations of the government.
Right.
But because they were dealing with government information, it has to be something that has access to government.
Correct.
So an independent fact-checking unit with access to the government, with representation from the government, will basically label information as fake when that information is put on social media platforms.
Correct.
The idea here is that the social media platforms can then decide based on that input whether they want to continue to host that content or not.
Right.
And if they continue to host the content, the only consequence of that is that the ministry or the department or the person that is aggrieved by the fake content will have the ability to legally pursue that dispute.
Correct.
And therefore the safe harbor, the immunity falls.
Right.
There is no restriction on free speech.
Right.
As a matter of fact, ours is the only government and the first government that has enshrined in the rules
Right.
that all the fundamental rights of the Indian citizen cannot be violated by any platform, whether they are a foreign platform or an Indian platform.
Right.
Including but not limited to Article 14, 19 and 21.
Right.
This is explicitly laid out
Right.
in the rules.
Right.
So therefore, I think there is a little bit of politics around this, trying to create this narrative that we are clamping down on free speech. We are doing none of that. This government is a trustee of the fundamental rights of Indian citizens, all Indian citizens.
Right.
However, it is also our duty to 100 crore digital Nagriks that the internet should be regulated to be safe and trusted.
Correct.
And the social media intermediaries must have an obligation,
Right.
which they, by the way, accept.
Right.
There is no adversarial relationship between the government and the social media platform. That they also want to make the internet a safe and trusted place and crack down on child sexual pornography, religious incitement content, misinformation, patently false information.
Right.
And for us, these are important issues because we are a democracy.
So these were the 9 categories which were listed
Exactly.
there.
In way back in September, October 2022.
Correct. Which
also evolved, by the way, after almost 3 months of consultation.
Absolutely. Which of course means that something which we saw during COVID, that co-vaccine contains cow serum.
Exactly.
That India is seeing every day about 1,000 odd deaths, and people were trying to create misinformation smear campaigns, even regarding the funerals
Right.
as well. Or something, when people create misinformation on Prime Minister's degree as well, which is publicly available.
So Rohan, I agree with you. Misinformation is not any casual phenomenon anymore.
Right.
It is a very deep risk to open societies and countries like ours.
Right.
Because vested interests and across the border state actors can misuse misinformation to create social divisions, to create a narrative that is wrong, patently false, and therefore, like I said, it is our obligation as a
safeguard the
government
interest
to
of-
ensure that the internet is safe and trusted and is bereft of misinformation.
When we talk about what is safe or not, your ministry has also conceived certain rules which make the online gambling a contentious issue at the moment. I am given to understand the new rule finally says today that self-regulatory organizations, that is SROs, comprising industry representatives, educationists, experts like child experts, psychology experts, will now decide the permissibility of online gaming. How does this impact the industry of online gaming? And do you think that today the government has sort of reconciled with the idea that gaming is possible in India with restrictions or without restrictions?
No, look, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's government from the get-go has been very clear that we want to avoid putting any roadblocks or hurdles in front of our young innovators. Online gaming is a very, very fast expanding, exciting part of the innovation economy. It is a very big part of the digital economy goal that we have for $1 trillion by 2025-26. So therefore, online gaming and the innovations represent a huge set of opportunities for startups in India,
Right.
young Indians. However, it is clear that online gaming, like the internet, also has good, and there are some slices of the online gaming sector that are bad.
Right.
And in India in particular, as I said, because our focus on safety and trust of the internet, we have identified wagering,
Right.
addictive gaming, and gaming that involves having harm or being creating problems for children
Right.
as being areas that we don't want on the Indian internet.
Correct.
So these online gaming rules that we have come up with,
Right.
after extensive consultation, after it was given to us as a responsibility on 2nd of January,
Right.
creates an absolutely clear framework
Right.
on what is permissible and what certainly is not permissible.
Right.
Now, even on the permissibility of it, there will be no government babu or some government department that will sit and ask you to register and file a form and decide whether it's on or off.
Correct.
It will be done by a self-regulatory organization at arm's length from the government.
Right.
But not dominated by industry. It will have educationists, it will have psychologists, it will have
Correct.
gamers, it will have gaming companies as stakeholders. So SROs, which are accountable for the decisions that they take, that are transparent in their functioning, is the way that the government has decided that we will regulate the online gaming space.
So which essentially means that there's a push to the industry and there's a level playing field as well.
100% we believe in, we are excited by, and the Prime Minister is completely committed to ensuring that the online gaming ecosystem in India
Right.
becomes a global leader and a world leader in terms of gaming innovation for the coming India decade.
Which of course means that companies like Dream 11, when we say IPL rate, of course will survive and will continue to grow in this
As
country.
long any gaming company, new or old, any gaming platform, new or old, that does not deal with wagering,
Right.
that does not have addictive gaming, and does not have any games that create user harm,
Correct.
are free to operate in the Indian internet.
Considering that you hold two portfolios, one that of the Skill Development Ministry and that of your own Ministry of Information Technology, what is the government's vision actually in the next 1.5 years? We're just about a year and a half ago to go for the Lok Sabha elections. From here on till next year general elections, what is the kind of transformation that you have envisioned for your own ministry or that in skill development as far as digital transformation is concerned?
No, look, the Honorable Prime Minister has laid out the markers and milestones for our country very, very clearly. He has referred to the next decade as the India decade. He has clearly talked about our ambition to become the third largest global economic power. We are at number 5 and number 3 is within striking distance. He has laid out that the future of India will be built on the energy, determination and innovation of our young Indians.
Right.
So he has laid out basically the markers of the policy framework for the government of India and our focus. So skilling, for example, which is a very, very critical thing, in this budget, the government of India under Prime Minister has given us almost 9,000 crores of rupees,
Right.
which will be used to skill young Indians all around the country in future-ready, industry-ready skills.
Right.
The world is looking at the Indian talent pool today with great anticipation because of the digitization needs of the world.
Right.
So the young Indian will become a global citizen and be addressing the needs of global enterprises and global countries and global government all around the world. So that is what we are rolling out. We certainly want to make lakhs and crores of young Indians future-ready skills, industry-ready skills, give them the skills that are required in these newer opportunities in the digital space, like you said. Certainly, today we can sit down and very safely assume that the world as we know it today will not be the world of the future because there will be so much of disruption.
Correct.
With AI and machine learning and all of these things, the Web3, all of this happening, there will be such a lot of disruption in business model.
Right.
So the skills that will be required for the future workforce,
Right.
the skills that will be required for future entrepreneurs are very different from the skills that were required 5 years from now, before or 2 years before. So the whole idea of this whole new mission, which is the PMKVY 4.0 as the PM has envisaged it, is really to make our youth get the skills that will allow them to succeed in the coming future. And because of their success, that India can become the number 3 economic power going forward and the largest innovation economy in the world. So his vision is very clear. It is for us to implement it and execute it over the next few years.
So is it something when I see you going to northeastern states, I saw your visits and I followed your visits to northeastern states, to Kashmir, these areas which were actually forbidden by the previous ministries and the previous governments who would never make such visits to these hinterlands to sort of empower the youth there.
Right.
Is that something which is also the focus of your ministry?
No, absolutely. This is what the Prime Minister says, that every young Indian, regardless of whether in the past their fathers and mothers never had the opportunity, but every young Indian, whether they are in J&K, the Northeast, the South or the West, must be a participant in this journey of India decade.
So does that mean, are we going to see more of Northeasterners and Kashmiris?
I think our job as a government is to make sure these opportunities are available to every Indian.
Correct.
The smartest young Indians will succeed. Those who put their effort and they put their determination will succeed. But the fact that every Indian, regardless of whether he or she is in Kohima or he or she is in Bijapura, Karnataka, or in Thrissur, Kerala, or in Surat, Gujarat,
Right.
regardless, or in Srinagar or Badgam in Jammu and Kashmir,
Right.
all Indians must get an access to skilling. And I can tell you one thing.
Right.
In the last 18-19 months, that when after Prime Minister Modi ji has given me this privilege to serve, I have visited 52 universities.
Right.
All around the country,
Right.
and all of them small colleges, none of the big IITs or any of that. And this Josh this ambition that the Prime Minister has unleashed amongst our young Indians is very visible and very alive and very vibrant across the nation.
Considering that you yourself worked at one of the pioneers of the chip making companies across the world, Intel is where you started your career. I attended the debut of this ministry at Semicon, which was something which was remarkable, considering that when we interacted with the titans of the world, concentrating in one place, it was unimaginable. From every top industry working in the Semicon, we had the representative there. Are we going to see more of the focus on Semicon, considering that Taiwan, Japan, and China have been the leaders and the pioneers?
Look, Rohan, my answer to this is that I think in the last 1 year, ever since the Prime Minister graciously launched Semicon India in April 2022,
Right.
India has come a long way in semiconductors. From being almost absent from a semiconductor conversation or absent from a global semiconductor discourse,
Right.
India is now firmly in the center of it.
Right.
Renesas, a Japanese semiconductor company, sets up an R&D center with Tatas
Right.
in Bengaluru.
Right.
We are going to soon hear about a fab being launched in India with a global technology partner.
Right.
So I think if you do the report card by May 23 of the last 12 months since the Prime Minister launched this program, you will find that India is now firmly on the map.
Right.
And one more piece of evidence of that is, as the US decouples with China on issues of semiconductor and critical technologies,
Right.
recently under the leadership of Piyush Goyal ji and the Secretary of Commerce of the US,
Right.
Gina Raimondo,
Right.
India and USA have signed a memorandum of understanding for strategic and critical technologies.
Right.
Because India increasingly today
Right.
brings to the table ambitions,
Right.
talent. We are the largest talent pool of semiconductors, and we will continue to be the largest talent pool of semiconductors outside of North America.
Right. If I may ask you a political question here, since you mentioned Bangalore a lot, is there a thrust by this government at the moment, or in the run-up to Karnataka elections, that everything was planned around Karnataka, or was it by coincidence, or because Karnataka is the hub of technology? Many would say that, of course, it is going to benefit BJP in the coming elections that Semicon was held there and everybody was called there as well.
Look, I can tell you something that for our Honorable Prime Minister, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, Bengaluru, Karnataka, Hyderabad, Telangana, Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh, Dholera, Gujarat, all of these places are equally important and equitably handled by the government of India in terms of creating opportunities, supporting their youngsters in all of these places.
Which means DEF Expo can be held in Lucknow.
Exactly, and it was held
Gujarat
in
can have.
Exactly. So I think technology opportunities in 2014, we had only 5 cities that were almost totally monopolizing technology opportunities, and today in India there are over 24 cities where some kind of technology momentum and some kind of technology hub has developed. So I think, of course, for me as a Bengalurian, Bengaluru is special, but I think the people that make a beeline for Bengaluru today is because of the talent in Bengaluru, and certainly that is something that I as an individual MP will continue to support.
Correct. A couple of more questions and then we'll wrap up this interview. Considering that, of course, the theme of this interview was definitely the setting up of the screening committee or a separate fact-checking committee. So certain fact-checkers in this country have actually tried to inflame passions. For example, if I may say, a gentleman who was arrested from Bangalore, your home state, where you come from, the moment Mohammed Zubair, he was arrested by Delhi police. He was charged by UP police as well. How does your minister, is actually he one of the trigger points as well, or is it general?
No, look, our approach to policy making, our approach is driven by some principles. And the principle here and our goal is that the internet should be safe and trusted. That nobody, whether they are wittingly or unwittingly, whether they are a state actor from across the border or vested interest in the country, should have the power and the ability to use misinformation, to create toxicity, to create user harm, to create strife. That is something that we will not permit. Now, whether it is a person you mentioned, or it is some state actor sitting in Islamabad, or it is some other country that is jealous of India's rise in the world, we certainly must be aware and open to the fact that the internet is no longer just a place for good.
Correct.
It is a place where people try to manipulate narratives. It is a place where the people try and introduce toxicity. It is a place where people try and do illegal work. It is a place where the people try and create user harm.
Right.
So, in a sense, the government of India, vis-a-vis 120 crore digital Nagriks, has an obligation, and that obligation we take very seriously, which is that the internet must be a safe and trusted place, and those who commit illegality on the internet must be identified and must be
Prohibited from?
not prohibited alone. It must go through the consequences of the normal law.
Correct.
Under the outside the internet, if you do something wrong,
Right.
the law will catch up with you.
Absolutely.
Internet में ये नहीं होना चाहिए. It should not be ever the case that people believe that on the internet I am never going to be traced. I'm going to be beyond the law. So we are making it very clear, as in the law, as in the real world, in democratic societies, the law will always prevail. Similarly, on the internet, that there will always be a rule of law, and there will always be the concept of accountability for people who violate the law.
You also seem to be one of the trusted lieutenants when it comes to BJP's election management in Karnataka. Of course, with a few days, weeks left for the elections to be held in Karnataka. How excited are you personally? And
No,
where do you think?
I am not any trusted lieutenant or anything. I am. It is my duty and job to serve Karnataka BJP. I am a Karyakarta, and I have been given some work, and I will continue to do so. My assessment is very clear about Karnataka voters. I have had the privilege of understanding Karnataka politics for now almost 30 years.
Correct.
And I think this is the first time in the history of Karnataka for several decades since it got its statehood that we are seeing a government that is actually functioning and delivering.
Right.
In the worst period in the history of Karnataka during COVID, followed by the floods followed by the COVID, this double engine Sarkar of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji and B.S. Yediyurappa first, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji and CM Bommai after that, has really served the people of Karnataka steadfastly, held the state together, held its economy together, kept the people safe, and done a significant amount of development work post-COVID. So I think the people have the report card in front of them. They will decide whether they want the Siddaramaiah, DK Shivkumar dysfunctionality of the last 60 years to continue with their faces now on the cover of that particular product, or they want the double engine Sarkar of PM Narendra Modi ji.
So do you actually believe that the fight between Shivakumar and Siddaramaiah is going to help BJP?
I don't think there is any fight. I think they are two sides of one very poor, dysfunctional Rahul Gandhi-led Congress coin. There is very little to choose between those two people. They both have illustrious records, dubious record, both in governance and corruption. And I think, there is really, the fight between the two of them is no zero-sum game. What are they fighting about? Certainly not to serve the state of Karnataka. And we all know the battle and the desperation of the Congress in Karnataka is because they want to make Karnataka the ATM of the Congress party, because they are going to soon lose Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh. And so they need a piggy bank, and Karnataka, they hope, through their so-called...
Let me tell you, Mr. Chandrasekhar, that you mentioned Mr. Gandhi. Mr. Gandhi is now going to Karnataka, and he's starting his campaign from the same place where he made inadvertently or advertently the remark against the Modi community, and he has been charged and of course convicted by the court.
I don't think our campaign, or indeed the Karnataka voter, will be swayed by what is a typical Congress strategy, which will be a lot of lies. You saw that in the Nandini Amul case yesterday. They tried to lie there, to spin that. They will do what they do, which is lie. They will create fear. Can you imagine today their leaders are going around saying that if they win the election, they will snatch back the reservation that has been given to the Vokaligas and the Lingayats and the Dalit community.
Correct.
That they will reverse a constitutionally valid position of caste-based reservation to do what is a constitutionally illegal provision of religion-based reservation. So that is what they are openly saying. So there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that the people of Karnataka will give them exactly the fate that they deserve. which has consigned them to the dustbins of history.
One last question and then we wrap up this interview. I believe that Apple's chief, Mr. Tim Cook, is scheduled to visit India, which is going to be a very exciting trip if it's true. I mean, I'm going to ask you this question because I believe that he's going to launch India's first flagship Apple store. How do you think this will change?
Look, I am not privy to his exact travel plans, but I certainly welcome him to India, and I'm given to understand that he's certainly traveling to India soon. That is a recognition of the fact that Apple considers India a very important part of their evolving supply chains and evolving value chains. India, certainly under Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, will do its best and will continue to do its best to make sure that India is the preferred destination for Apple's future investments, for manufacturing, for innovation, for engineering, testing, R&D, all of that. So we will certainly be working very closely with Apple to make India their preferred partner in this new post-COVID sort of a redrawn supply chains for electronics.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chandrasekhar.
Thank you.
It's been a privilege to have you on the show today, and all the best for this campaign today as well.